Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this 45th session of Wandering Through the Big Book. And this is step 7, part 2, and this is Sunday, January 16th, 2022. We're going to start with our opening words. Welcome to this session of Wandering Through the Big Book. This is not a meeting of the Fellowship of Alcoholics. There's no group conscience, no seventh tradition, no requirement for membership. Anyone is welcome. Our primary purpose is taking an in-depth look at the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, in order to deepen and strengthen our own recovery, to try to help others to do the same, and to try to become trusted servants of our fellowship. We are seeking conscious contact by trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. And we are trying to improve that conscious contact by practicing steps 10, 11, and 12 every day and applying the spiritual principles we are learning to the details of our ordinary day-to-day lives. We will begin this gathering with a moment of silence to reflect on why we are here. Sorry. Dude. And now we're having some readings adapted from the big book, and Robin's going to do number 1.
Good morning, Robin, alcoholic. Number 1, I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through, and though perhaps you came to scoff, you will remain to pray. Page 0, right before page 1.
And Lauren, number 2.
No attitude of holier than thou, no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective, page 18. And be quick to see where religious people are right, page 87.
Thanks, Lauren. Buck, number 3.
If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe you have but 2 alternatives. One is to go on to the bitter end and blotting out of your consciousness how miserable you really are, page 25. And the other, to ask our Creator each morning in meditation to show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, page 83.
And Amy, number 4.
Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will for us into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. This is the proper use of the will, page 85.
And Jamie, number 5.
Just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and do as I think God would have me do, will I be enabled to experience spiritual serenity right in the midst of the human calamity, page 68. Head in the clouds and feet firmly on the ground, from page 130.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody. Mute all. Yes. And here we go. All right, so first of all, I'm so glad you're all here, and I got going a little late and I'm a little scattered. Let's see. So the 7-step prayer. My Creator is the way it's, I know what it's starting to say. So steps 4 and 5 are really about you are here. You know, people will say it's like when you see a map of a park or a zoo or a museum and it's got a little arrow that says you are here. Well, that's what we're doing in 4 and 5. We're putting ourselves on the map, and the big thing for me about 6 and 7 is this is where we are moving toward real change. There's a line in the book that says to conclude, it's talking about resentment, and it says to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. And that's a cold, hard truth about how most of us have lived our lives. We've come to a conclusion at some point that this is it. That how many people do you hear say, you know, I wake up hungover, I start drinking again, and I just say to myself, this is just the way it is. This is just the way I am. You know, we accept something that's just the way it is, and that's concluding that others were wrong. At any rate, when we get to 6 and 7, this is the start of real change, and the change really takes place in 8 and 9, and then in our ongoing effort to improve our conscious contact. And if I have a flag I'd like to wave, and this is a sensitive thing because is in a meeting is don't stop. Don't just get comfortable and stop with that. And that, you know, you can feel meetings get kind of stuck. Everybody gets comfortable. We pat each other on the back because we're staying sober one more day. But the fact is, sobriety is the beginning of this deal. It's not the end. The end is not even serenity. The end is what step 11 is talking about. The end is praying only for knowledge of what the frig am I doing here on planet Earth in 2022. Praying only for knowledge of my Creator's will for me and the power to carry that out. And that all shows up in the 7th step prayer, my Creator. I'm now willing, after going through the drudgery and the tediousness of step 4 and dealing with all this negative stuff and then disclosing it to somebody else, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Now this is, at least for me, this is huge. I have built a life based on my perception of good and bad, deciding what's good and what's bad. And when we get to St. Ignatius, he's got a really different view on that. But I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I am removing my sense of I know what's good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me. Well, the prayer for removal is a theme that goes right back to the 3rd step prayer. Relieve me of this bondage of self that I have just detailed in step 4. So I can better do thy will, not so I can feel better, not so I can be sober, not so I can get my relationship back or whatever, my job back or whatever it is, so that I can better do thy will. But this prayer for removal is it's something that the human ego does not want to do. I've been fighting for this stuff all my life, and now you're going to take it away from me? You know, I've been self-justifying my behaviors and my standard of living all this time, and you're going to take it away from me? And actually the prayer, it doesn't say that. It says, I pray that you now remove from me anything that stands in the way of me being useful to you and to my fellows. Doesn't say stands in the way of me getting sober or stands in the way of me getting sane. Usefulness becomes this comes out of the Oxford groups. It shows up big time in St. Ignatius and the Jesuits. It's a whole different deal. It's not about me. You know, people often say a spiritual awakening is understanding that my life is not about me. It's about something actually way beyond my ability to even comprehend. When you get to St. Ignatius, he's talking about saving your soul. Well, I think that's I don't like to think of it as saving my soul, because I don't want to think that my soul needs saving. My soul's doing fine. It's just being dominated by my human self, by all my concerns about my body and my mind. So my soul doesn't even get a chance to speak. I mean, it only gets a chance to speak to me when I learn to be quiet and I'm more emptied out in here, up in this this attic that's just cluttered with stuff and cobwebs and yada yada yada. Any rate, I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. And then we get to the step 11 part. Grant me strength, which is power, as I go out from here to do your bidding, which is guidance. I'm going to God and say, enough about enough about me. What do you want me to do now? There's a whole section in this step 7 about my creator, and going through all the sections in the book where it either refers to maker, which it does before the 3rd step prayer. It says, so we said to our maker as we understood him. This is starting with my creator, and it's, at least for me, it's wonderful, and it can be confusing, and I find more and more it's confusing because I have my body, my mind, and my soul, or my spirit. And with regard to my body and my mind, I think I can do some things. I think I can go to the gym and get in better shape. I can decide what to eat or what not to eat. I can sort of decide whether to smoke or not smoke. I think it's once we get these habits going, it kind of, we get powerless over our own habits, and it takes real energy and determination to change those habits. And if you go back to Emmett Fox, he was saying you can't change it on your own power. What you can do is substitute a different habit for the one that you want to get rid of. So at any rate, I've felt I can do some things with regard to my body and my mind. But then, so in a sense, I have created a certain condition in my body or my mind. But when you get to my soul, I don't have a clue. And I think I brought up this book, Journey of Souls, by Michael Newton, Newton, a hypnotherapist that kept having people under hypnosis, drop into a different mentality, consciousness, I guess you'd say. And against his own whatever, he after enough time, he was a firm believer in the soul, occupying a human body, and went into great detail about the life of the soul between human lives. It's fascinating, and especially coming from a scientist or somebody trained in science. So I'm convinced that I have this soul, but where I feel like I know my body and my mind to some degree, I don't have a clue with regard to my soul. So when St. Ignatius says, the primary purpose of your life is to love, honor, and serve your creator, and thereby save your soul. What it means to me is do what my soul came here to do, which I frankly don't know. You know, what I love the freedom and power of step 11 is that I don't have to figure anything out, anything. What I have to do is ask my creator, what is your will for me? What do you want me doing? And I love, you know, the reading we do. I I believe my creator wants me to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving. All the time, about everything, no exceptions, no matter what. And I can't do that on human power. I have to ask to be shown. For me, this is about pulling back the human self so that the spiritual self can step forward, and the spiritual self can bring to the human experience its natural qualities. Our book says deep down in every one of us is this fundamental spiritual nature, and it's pulling back the body and the mind and allowing the spirit to come forward. Okay, so anyway, so some things that back this up. I think I'm going to start with the 7th beatitude, and I'm going to do some reading here, and I hope I don't lose you when doing the reading. It's tough because, you know, when I don't know, we'll see. Okay, that 7th beatitude said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." We talked about it last week a little bit. And this is, I'm reading from Emmett Fox, reading from his book called Sermon on the Mount, which is his interpretation of whatever Matthew wrote down that's about what Jesus said in this Sermon on the Mount. So, you know, we're several degrees removed in language and people from what and how Jesus said this. But so here's what Emmett says. Here we receive an invaluable practical lesson in the art of prayer. Prayer, be it remembered, is our only means of returning to our communion with God. So the goal for Emmet is returning, which is wonderful. He's not saying this is new territory. He's saying you're going back to this, returning to our communion with God. Prayer is the only real action in the full sense of the word, because prayer is the only thing that changes one's character. A change in character or a change in soul is real change. Just a sidelight. So I'm just thinking back to business meetings. I don't know how many of you get to business meetings, but you know, you spend an hour and a half deciding nothing, and or really small stuff. And I just remember, this was years ago, but somebody was suggesting a small format change. I think we wanted to have people willing to sponsor others hold up your hand. And it was at a beginner's meeting. It was just a way to try to people identify, I'm willing to try to be helpful, and other people to see if they wanted to, any rate. So what came back from the old timers, the entrenched old timers, which is what happens to meetings, you know, whoever goes to the business meeting the longest, you know, was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know, and you hear that a lot, and it's like, wait a minute, this is about change. We're trying to change. How do we know if it's a good or bad change? We won't know until we try it. And anyway, so a change in character or a change in soul is real change. When that kind of change takes place, you become a different person. And therefore, you act in a different way. He talks about getting a strong realization of the presence of God and how that will change you. And that was what Jesus was referring to in terms of born again. So I want to read you this next part. Prayer should be understood as including any form of communion or attempted communion with God, whether vocal or purely mental. It includes both affirmative and invocatory prayer, each of which is good. Then talks about meditation, and then the highest form of prayer, which is contemplation. So the way I understand prayer, and then meditation, and then contemplation, and you get your own, whatever you want. Prayer is me asking, it's me putting something out there, a request for guidance around something, a request for change, strength and power, prayer for removal, whatever. And meditation is trying to be receptive to what comes back. Contemplation, as I understand it, is where you are sitting in the presence of God, and you ain't thinking or talking. You aren't putting stuff out there, and you're in centering prayer. They talk about it as sitting in the presence of God and actually inviting God in to heal you. The healing presence of God. So whatever. In the absence of prayer, all you can do is express the character that you have in whatever circumstance you find yourself. So much is this the case that most of your friends would be prepared to predict beforehand what your conduct would be in various kinds of crises that could arise. Prayer, by changing your character, makes a new reaction possible. Now, I'm going to say for me, when I fear, which means that I don't trust God or I don't have access to God, when I feel and I feel I'm fearing for my body and my mind, I don't think I fear for my soul, because it's an eternal being that is going to survive my physical and mental death. What I'm really afraid of is how I react when something happens. You remember we talked about this before. I would talk about traveling. I could get nervous thinking about driving to Rockland because I know I could get in a traffic jam, or there's some stupid driver could do something stupid. What I'm really afraid of is me. I'm afraid of how I react when the thing I tell you I'm afraid of is going to happen. I might be afraid of having an interaction with another human being. What I'm really afraid of is how I'm going to react when they do something that I know is going to push my button. So prayer is how we get a new reaction, and particularly if I'm able to live in patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, I'm not going to have to react with resentment, fear, and remorse. Those are my reactions to life. All of my resentments and my fear and my sense of remorse around my selfish conduct, the very things that we inventory. I'm trying to change my reaction to those things. The great essential for success in prayer, for obtaining that sense of the presence of God, which is the secret of healing oneself, of obtaining inspiration, which is the breath of the soul. I like that. The sense of inspiration, that's the breath. That's what the soul needs to stay alive. Amy likes to introduce herself as an enthusiastic alcoholic. I love it. I love it. That's what I want to be at. If we're in a meeting together, I try to outcompete, declare I'm more enthusiastic, but I love it as opposed to, I'm an alcoholic, my name is Jack, life really sucks. Okay, the great essential for success in prayer, which is the secret of healing oneself, obtaining inspiration, acquiring spiritual development, is that we first attain some degree of true peace of mind. And I'm not going to get very far if I can't get to a settled state of peace of mind. This true interior soul peace was known to the mystics as serenity. That's what serenity is. Experiencing the true peace of my soul. And the mystics, or who, I'm not sure who there is, never tired of telling us that serenity is the grand passport to the presence of God. An experience of the presence of God we call conscious contact. That's what we're after here. Okay, so then he's more specific. The peacemakers spoken of in this beatitude are those who make or bring about this true peace or serenity in their own souls. For it is they who surmount limitation, I would add human limitation, and become actually the children of God. So these peacemakers are very blessed indeed, because they're doing what we're really after. Some degree of serenity is essential to the attainment of any true concentration. So I'm going to move on to the next beatitude because it's, you remember, we're reading Bill's story, and he talks about somebody committing suicide in his home. And the next thing is, he says, is still there's a vast amount of fun about it all. Hold on, Bill, wait a minute. You just talked about suicide in your home. Now you're calling this fun. And then he says, but underneath our sense of levity is an earnestness, because we know if we drink, we die. Up and down, up and down. And in these beatitudes, what comes right after genuine peace of soul and serenity? Blessed are those who are resented. This is the eighth beatitude. Blessed are they which are persecuted for their righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when you make somebody else's resentment list. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely. Rejoice and be glad. For great is your reward in heaven. So persecuted were the prophets before you. It's just crazy. You know how our book mentions that they were going to put Galileo to death? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're sure that we're here and the sun is going around us. We are the center of the universe, and Galileo comes along and says, I don't think so. And so what do? They're going to have to kill him. It's just, I don't know what it is about human nature that is so, I don't know. Okay. The will of God for us is harmony, peace, and joy. Emmet saying, the will of God for us is patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. And that these things are to be attained by cultivating right thoughts or righteousness. And then he says that the peacemakers who do this, praying in meekness. So you'll remember there was a beatitude about meek, but it doesn't mean what we normally think of as meek. It means honest, open, and willing. It means emptied of self-will, lower on less ego energy going on. They shall obtain prosperity, inherit the earth, have their mourning turned into joy. And whatever they ask the Father in the manner of this teaching, he will do. And it goes on to just talk about what's really going on is that, let's see, our own mentality needs clearing up. For what you see at any time is nothing other than your own self-concept. Isn't that interesting? The Enneagram calls it the background of our attention. You know, what I've got going on in this very moment in terms of my own primary purpose. At any rate, he goes on to say that, I'm not finding it because I didn't get a chance to read it, but this is, oh yeah, every spiritual treatment involves a tussle with our own lower self. So he's saying the reason that you're blessed when you're experiencing resentment coming at you is because it's going to give you an opportunity to escape from the shackles of your own resentful human nature. So, okay, I'm going to stop at that and go on to St. Ignatius, just because it's, I don't know, I'm getting a lot out of it, and it's kind of fun. So these spiritual exercises were written in Spanish, and again, they've been translated, and I've got to have at least 6 different translations of it. And they start off with these 20 introductory observations. And basically, he's saying for this thing to work, he's directing it to the giver of the exercises as opposed to the receiver. And he's basically saying, you got to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving, or this thing won't work. And when somebody else, you know, gives you your stuff, you're to try to place a very positive interpretation on it. And then he gets to number 21, which is the title. And he says, the spiritual exercises have as their purpose the conquest of self. Now, I haven't gotten into it enough to see just what they're talking about, but for me, it works better when it's the conquest of my human self, not my spiritual self. It means I've done something so that I can get over the habit patterns of my human personality, so that I can actually be guided by my Creator. So the spiritual exercises have as their purpose the conquest of the human self and the regulation of one's life in such a way that no decision is made under the influence, that's the way they translate it, under the influence of any disordered affection. And we talked before about affection is a nice thing. Affections feel good. I think disordered means I've got them out of priority, or they're not working. They're disordered in the sense that they're not working. So this is, I love it in terms of how it ties into what we're trying to do here. That I don't make any decision under the influence of my human personality, which has got its priorities screwed up. And for whatever reason, I went to the original manuscript of the big book, and it's just fascinating. It's just a wonderful thing. And Hazelden has put out a book that has photocopies of the original manuscript, and I guess the owner of the Indianapolis Colts owns it now. But it's been photographed, and you see they sent this thing out and they let everybody comment on it. And then they changed it, and you see these changes, and it's even in different colors based on different people going through the thing. And it's, anyway, this is what the original manuscript said before the third step prayer. It's at the bottom of page 62. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, quit playing God yourself. What they do, they're talking in you statements, and as they went through the editorial process, they turned it around a little bit, and they made it to we, and they made it into past tense. This is present tense. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, quit playing God yourself. I love it that we would talk this way. It doesn't work. You know, it's not that it's not righteous. It's not that it's not godly. It doesn't work. That's why you got to quit. It doesn't work. That's our only measure of success here is it working? It's why, you know, the whole deal will only work when you're working on a conception of God that works for you. It doesn't work. Next, so we got 3 steps here that I love. First of all, quit playing God, which is also like pausing, which is also like step 10 when we stop and we pray at once for removal, and we share with somebody, and we make amends if called for, and we turn our mind to service. It doesn't work. Next, so quit playing God. Next, and you'll hear people say, invite God in. That's what I got to do, is invite God into the situation. They say, next, decide that hereafter in this drama of life, that's the calamity, the drama of life, God is going to be your director. He is the principal. You are to be his agent. He is the father, and you are his child. And then they say, get that simple relationship straight. They took that whole sentence out, but get that simple relationship straight. Listen up, numbnut, whatever, you know. Quit playing God, invite God in, do as directed. Boom, you do that, you're going to experience serenity. Pure and simple. So anyway, St. Ignatius. So next thing he does is this principle and foundation. I already started into it, but he goes on. So you are created to love, honor, and serve your creator, unless you think you created yourself and you can do whatever you want, which is what most of us think. It's what I thought. I thought my job was figuring out what I wanted and then making it happen. And this isn't saying that. You are created to love, honor, and serve your creator, and by this means to save your soul, to do whatever it is my soul came here to learn. I love it when you hear people say, I am not a human being seeking a spiritual experience. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. That's a whole different perspective. Then Ignatius says, the other things on the face of this earth are created for you to save your soul. So he's saying everything here is to be helpful to you. Therefore, you are to make use of them in as far as they are helpful, and rid yourself of them in as far as they are a hindrance. So isn't that the same as the 7-step prayer? You know, take away from me whatever is not useful in terms of my service to you. Therefore, we must make ourselves indifferent to all created things. We should not prefer health to sickness, riches to poverty, honor to dishonor, long life or short life. Are you kidding me? I mean, the human ego, that's all we're doing most all of the time. We're trying to feel good. We're trying to, have a sense of abundance, have the respect of the world, live a long time, plan for our retirement, all this stuff. We should not prefer health to sickness, riches to poverty, honor to dishonor, long life to short life. And the same holds true for all other things. Our one desire and choice should be what is more conducive to the end for which we are created, which takes you right back to the primary purpose idea again. Why am I created? I've spent a lifetime pursuing surviving a long life for one, and trying to feel good for another. It's plagued me since I was a wee lad. Why can't I feel better than I do? Give me anything. I'll drink cough syrup, smoke marijuana, whatever, anything. Hand me a pill. I'm not even going to ask. To get away from the way I feel. And so then this frickin' Ignatius comes along and says, it doesn't matter how you feel. All that matters is that you, through prayer, get to enough peace of mind that you can form this relationship. It's striking me more and more about how everything is about relationship, and that the relationship that matters the most is between my human self and my spiritual self, between my body and my mind and my soul, and how much work I have to do to allow that the spirituals. I don't know how many of you are reading the Emmett Fox Reader. And the first January is just an amazing month in that reader. And the very first thing he starts off with, it's titled "The Wonder Child," and it's Isaiah, and it's not Isaiah predicting the coming of Jesus. It's Isaiah promising you that if you will develop this relationship with your soul and allow your soul to run your life instead of your human nature running your life, you will experience peace, serenity, abundance, patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. It's just beautiful, and it's exactly what we're talking about here. So okay, so just a couple. Let's see. I guess I'll first stop this recording, and so thank you all. Oh, I know I'm supposed to ring the gong. Okay, thank you. Don't go away. I'll be right back. Thank you.